So this is going to be a video for what I'm calling Arc Magnolia, which is sort of a reference to Noah's Ark just because of the way the ratios work. But this is a list that I've been workshopping for the new Magnolia Patriarch with my fiance, who actually plays the deck, and she took this to BSF Philly this past weekend. Did pretty good, did 5-3, and wanted to just go over how I came up with the deck and some of the thought processes behind it. Here's the full list. And as usual, you'll see the deck code somewhere here in the bottom throughout the rest of the video. But let's just jump into the list. So, as per usual, I don't think I've ever done a single deck profile where the format has been the same, but we're still messing around with that. So what I'll do here is I'll go over through the cards in the actual list super quickly, and then we'll break it down after that, right? So going from reverse, starting with the triggers, we have Blessed Favor. Then we have 4 normal heals, which I think we can upgrade to 2 of each counter heal. 3 draw triggers, not fronts. 4 of whatever trigger, critical trigger you want, and then 4 of whatever other critical trigger you want. Ideally, a Silver Horned one, but it doesn't really matter. PGs, 3 and an Elementaria. I don't know how important Elementaria is, but you know, Elementaria is Elementaria. 2 of each of Mythic Habitat and Frozen Resentment. We'll get more into that in a bit. Only 3 copies of Sincerity. 2 copies of Cyril. 2 copies of Gnosla. 2 copies of Godot. 2 copies of the new Green Goat. 2 copies of the Apple. 2 copies of Banana Split. 2 copies of the Weasel. 4 copies of the key card here, Deeplands Medef. 1 copy of the Fire Regalis and 1 copy of the Ace unit. And then finally, of course, 3 copies of Magnolia in the main deck. For the ride line, it's the usual fare. It's just the Magnolia line. Let me know if you have an FR of this, trying to get it. So the way this build came about is with the release of Medef here, who's basically the Sturkea version of Tetrafold, which is a Keter card, which is notoriously part of Keter Pile, which is just a collection of a generic order, a generic grade 2 that can interact with the order and call something out, and a generic grade 1 that you can play in any deck, right? You can play that core in any deck. So I was somewhat jokingly trying to come up with Sturkea Pile to see how that would work out since we finally got this, and I was like, well, you know, should be pretty easy to do that. So I had a list where it was like this, 4 copies of Alvenia, and like 4 copies of Mythic Habitat and stuff like that. And that worked out pretty interesting. And then it got me to thinking. So from there, I sort of came up with this list. So the main thing that this list is trying to do is to solve 2 of Magnolia's problems. It originally was 3, but we ended up dropping that one. First is that we're trying to get copies of Magnolia that you can actually use and ride with, right? As of right now, the only way to do that, really, is you just draw into it, or you play Cyril and manage to get it from the top 5, right? Which is not super likely, unfortunately, as any Magnolia player will ever tell you, or anyone that's ever played something that's look at top 5, right? It doesn't happen very often that you get to actually hit that. So the only other way that we can do that is to make our deck have less cards in it, right? So that we can then maybe draw into it. And that's kind of where Medef comes in here. So Magnolia has the ability to, whenever she's ridden upon, you can trigger a lot of effects on Magnolia's ride, which is very important. So the act of riding Magnolia is more important than actually getting the Persona ride that comes with Magnolia, which is kind of funny, which is why Magnolia Elder was considered really heavily for this list, right? Because you have stuff like the Godot here, right, that can activate. It can put itself into Soul to give your Magnolia more power, but also give you Soul. And then you can have the Commandant here, who can, again, put himself into Soul to reduce your counterblast by 1, which is really nice, but also it can call itself out. And then you also have the Banana Spati here, who you can call from Magnolia skill, because you can only call Sylvanhorn Beast, and then Banana Spati can then call something else out, right? which then allows you to call out something like the Hulu, which then lets you call something else out. So it's really nice. But it's kind of hard to get all of that set up, right? Which is the other thing that we're trying to solve here. It's really hard to get all that stuff set up because that's a lot of cards that you have to get and drop in order to be able to sequence that stuff and be able to manage resources, get a bunch of units, and do all that stuff, right? So again, that's where Medivh comes in here. So in order to activate Medivh, you have to play her either from hand or anywhere else, as long as it's not by a unit's ability. Hence, we can play in order to get her, right? Which is why we're playing here 2 copies of Frozen Resentment specifically, because we can get Medivh from drop, call her, and then activate her ability to then Soul Blast, like a top 5, call anything from that top 5 or add it to our hand. Which allows us to just go through our deck super easily and get a lot of our stuff set up, especially in the early game, right? Likewise, we're playing Mythy Habitat for the same reason. Because if we don't already have her, we can use this to search her and then extend it to even further more. And that's kind of like the main thing with this deck, is that you can extend so much, right? Because you can do one ride of Magnolia, which lets you trigger a bunch of effects, like I just said, right? You can trigger the Godot's you have in drop. Here you can trigger this guy if you have him in drop. You can call this from drop. If you have this also in drop, you can then call this as well, right? So you have a lot of things you can trigger on ride, and it allows you to, sequence things in a specific order to get the best results. But in order to get access to that, of course, we have to somehow get everything that's available, right? So that's the 2 issues that I tried to solve with Magnolia that I was saying, is that 1, you need to see Magnolia. The only way that you can see Magnolia is by drawing into it really right now, right? Or playing Sero. And then getting lucky. So we increase the chances of Sero being triggered, and also increase the chances of us hard drawing into it, just because we're doing so much deck thinning with all these cards. Then we're also increasing the odds that we'll get the units that we need and able to trigger everything in drop, so we have all of our pieces, by again, of course, playing stuff like the Frozen Resentment that lets us mill. You take 1 card from the top 3, put it to drop, and then call something from drop, which is great, right? Because that lets us set up something for later, and then also call a body on board. Mythy Habitat, of course, lets us go deeper into the deck, and then it extends into the Medivh, who lets us call something else out, who lets us get another order. We also have Ace Unit, which essentially does the same thing, right? Because as long as this is played other than during battle phase, but it can be played from hand, from drop, from deck, whatever. On place, you EB3, look at top 7, mill 1, and then call something from drop, which is really great. So this allows us to continue our extension. And then, of course, we have stuff like the Fire Regalis, which again lets us look at top 5, call something else out. So this is like a fucking gold paladin version of Magnolia, because we're just looking through the deck so much, trying to get it as thin as possible, which, of course, helps us out with things like the Gnorsla, who now can eat all those triggers that we're now checking because our deck is so thin. Which is trying to solve, again, for the sort of 3rd issue that I kind of found with Magnolia, which is that you really don't have that much power on any of your units, right? You're still kind of die when your opponent checks any defensives. Likewise, you yourself don't really have a lot of shield power. And there's really no cards that you are able to play that actually generate a good amount of shield. The only card is this one that I'll show on screen because I'm too lazy to go dig it from the binder, which was originally the main card that I was playing in this deck. That was being played instead of 2 copies of the Serral here, right? Serral was kind of like a late addition right at the end before it went to BSF, where that actually allows you to get a 15k shield on board, which is really nice, because nothing else really gets shield that you can get access to that you can actually reasonably play in Magnolia. I've looked at the entire list, right, without you going to play Magnolia Mask or something like that to get access to Maliva, right? There's nothing that reasonably gets you more shield that makes sense to play in the deck. But also, again, the only thing that you can do is then just try and get triggers, right? Which is what we're trying to do here. So we're deck thinning our deck as much as we can so that we can see Magnolia. We're deck thinning our deck as much as we can so we can see our pieces, and we're deck thinning our deck as much as we can so we can check triggers to kill our opponent, but also have them in hand either defensively, also to check them, but also get them in hand so we can actually guard, because that's really the only thing we can do with this deck, which I know sounds really silly because I've just gone a long-winded way of just saying we're doing deck thinning to have deck winning, but that's essentially what we're trying to do here with this list, right? And the reason, of course, that it's called Arc is the fact that I have 2 of all of the animals, right? Kind of similar to Noah's Ark, which is just mainly done for the sake of space, because it's kind of hard to fit all of these things into the list, which is kind of somewhat of another issue with Magnolia, right? Is that you need so many things, and you really can't fit them all in, right? Because there's a lot of cool tech options, but you need so many things, right? Because you have to have the Huli so that you can trigger it off the Banana Spati, so that Banana Spati on ride can actually call you something, which is really nice. You have to play this so that you don't have so much issues with Counterblast, right? You have to play the Ganosla so that you actually have some power, right? But then you also really want something like the Godot, so you can draw and have actually something that hits higher than 20 or 15k, right? Without you having a Persona ride. And then you also need something like this, right? So you can actually draw cards, right? So you have to somehow make space for all of these cards. And the only way that I could logically see that is if you just have an easier way to recur them, and if you can just easily get them into play. And that's kind of like the whole idea behind the list. I hope that sort of makes sense what I'm trying to go for with this list here, but it's essentially just trying to solve those 3 issues with just deck thinning, right? This deck, of course, I'm not saying is the best way to build Magnolia, but I do think it works pretty well. I also think that it has a lot of drawbacks. For example, you kind of auto lose to a couple of certain matchups, which is a bit unfortunate because they're very strong right now. So something like Varilla, you kind of auto lose to it, right? Not because the deck is strong per se, but specifically because they can bind your units and you're only playing 2 copies of everything, right? So you kind of auto lose in that aspect where it's like, all right, I've only seen 1 copy of this one woodland creature and now it's gone forever, right? So that kind of sucks, and they, you know, banned ghost sleeve tugging Bell for whatever unexplainable reason, so we can't get stuff from buying back. And in the same vein, right, you kind of auto lose to Bladmire because he binds 2 of them face down, so you can't even get them back even if you had access to sleeve tugging Bell, right? Of course, there are things like the Impex that you can maybe consider, right? To like help in those matchups. You can maybe change some things around, but that's sort of neither here nor there, right? But other than that, like, the deck does what it needs to do as a Magnolia deck, where it's just 6 attacks, go burr, deck thin, go burr, check triggers, right? See Magnolia, which is really important. In the future, the list is also going to work out relatively well, right? Because we have the new grade 2 Saro that we can literally just swap out for the grade 1 Saro, and the deck will be slightly better just because of the fact that that one is top 7. So all this deck thinning will be even more effective to hit our Magnolias more consistently. But also it's a grade 2, so it can actually intercept, has a little bit more power, so it hits marginally better, right? Not really much, but let's do a quick test hand and see how this works for me. All right, so for the mulligan for this build, ideally you want your hand to look something like this, right? As close to this as you can. Obviously this is 6 cards, right? But if I were to pick out the perfect mulligan, it'd be something like this, right? Ideally, you want to be able to use this and this, or the Mythy Habitat on turn 2, which would be really great. If you do have this, you have to remember that you can't use the soul for this unless you're going second. Then you can use the energy, because this just allows you so much early tempo going second, and allows you to get your pieces into play, which is really nice, right? This, of course, is just good because it lets you discard itself, use it for later, lets you get advantage in the early game. So if you can get a bunch of these, this is nice. Always want to mulligan for a trigger, right? So you don't get pushed too hard in the early game. You desperately need Magnolia, right? As much as you can to get as many of those as you can. Well, I shouldn't say as many of those, but you want to at least have one of these if you can in your hand, so you can guarantee a Persona Ride, because you're you can win on a Persona Ride turn. You cannot win without Persona Ride, right? You cannot win any sooner than Persona Ride. And then like one of your other creatures that you can discard, right, that has an effect in drop or on ride with Magnolia, that synergizes with Magnolia. Ideally, if you have one of those, it's nice. But these are like low priority, right? This would be the highest priority, right? So let's say this is my starting hand, right? So we'll go ahead and stand up. Vanguard, Silverhorn Beast, Lottie. We'll go first. I did put it on the bottom, just so you know. I just happened to draw into another one here. I did manufacture this hand, right? But after that, I shuffled the deck. But yeah, so let's say we're going first here. So what we can do is we can do a couple of different things, right? You can consider to yourself possibly discarding any of these 4 cards here. And you know, you can discard this because you want this in drop. You can discard this because you want to get the draw. You can discard this because you can get it back with the lattice, or you can discard this because you can get it back now with this and use it next turn. I would say that the right option here, of course, would be to do this. Discard this for your grade 1, right into Sharis, get your generator, get your counter. We lost the standee here, so Sibleth is kind of just there, but it kind of looks really perfect for this, so I might do that for all the videos if I ever do it like in this format. But the reason for that being is you don't want to use this if you have the order and Medif, so you can actually use that next turn because you need the soul. After turn 3, you don't need soul, right, if you have Godot and Comrade, because they all go into soul and they give you so much soul easily. Before grade 3, you are very pressed for soul and energy, right? Afterwards, you're totally fine. You can manage it, but you got to be very careful early on. So we'll just pass around on that. We'll take a Counter Blast just in case they try to counter the Naiats. Since I don't have Comrade or the Weasel, we'll go ahead and draw 1, 2, 3 here. Now we can go ahead and discard this lady in order to ride Lattice. We'll use this effect first. I don't think it generally matters, but we'll look at the top 3. Yet, an insane hit here. Being honest with you. But okay, did not manufacture any of that either. So this is good too. So we can, I think, calling this to get the most use out of this. And then discarding the 2 here. So Cherish, you look at top 3. Call a grade 2 or less. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck or discard them. So we obviously want everything in our drop as much as we can here, right? Then we can go ahead and Soul Blast out here to draw. Very nice. And then we can use this effect here to Energy Blast 3 on place. Look at the top 7. Mill 1. So we'll get rid of the Banana Spotty for now, so we can get access to that later. And then we can call 1 from drop. Right. Go ahead and give that a good shuffle. There. We can call a grade 2 or less from drop. Honestly, does not really matter. This will not trigger the effect, of course, not only because we didn't play an order, but because it's an ability. So you can kind of just call whatever. You can call out like this. Use the skill if you want to get aggro and get like a booster, but that's kind of dumb. You can use the skill to call Gnosala, which I think might be the better play, just so you can set that up for next turn and not have to worry about it. You know. And what I can do is next turn I can guard with this and discard this for ride or discard this for ride. So you have a lot of choices, right? You can go in a lot of different ways. But this actually has plus 5k, so you can go ahead and swing in here and swing in here. You can also push up the Gnosala if you want. So you're going to check a heal trigger here. Let's say we do heal. Past turn, let's say we beat our ass a bit. Hit us with a crit that we no guard, and then we guard the attack here. Then we go ahead and stand, go to 3 and draw. We can go ahead and discard Magnolia in order to ride Magnolia. Then we have a bunch of effects here that trigger from the drop, right? So we can have this go into Soul in order to give Magnolia 5k. And we can have this go into Soul in order to reduce Magnolia's counterblast by 1. Then we can go ahead and use Lattice's skill here to Soul Blast out Godot in order to then add Magnolia back to our hand. Then we can use Magnolia's skill here to call out Banana Spot Theme. Then use Banana Spotty's skill to slow out the Comrade here. So then call Sylvan Beast. Jeez. And call that to the back row there. And just like that, we have these available for next turn as well. So we're basically set up once we have like these three, right? Then I can go ahead and overextend a little bit here. We're going to go to main phase, play in order. So blast, look at the top, sorry, 3, mill this. Hitting that extra Godot would have been nice because you can also do double Godot, which is something you used to do with Elder. Because Godot says if you ride a Magnolia, it goes into Soul, gives the Magnolia Vanguard 5k, but only if you don't already have a copy of it in Soul. But if you have 2 of them, you can put one into Soul, and if you can get out the other one, you can put the second one into Soul, if they're both in drop, right? When the ride happens, they can both trigger. You can give your Vanguard plus 10k. You can still do that in this version thanks to Lattice, and also thanks to Banana Spotty, both Soul Blasting out. Then we can call 1. We don't really have anything super cool to call out, so we can call out the Metaphere. Since this is played from an order, we can then Soul Blast 1. Look at the top 5 here to get even more deck thinning. This is kind of interesting, so we'll overcall herself in order to get the Cyril here, whose effect we could use if we had the extra soul, but we really just want this setup for next turn. Right, and we're already looking pretty good here. We also have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cards in drop. So just need 1 more for this, and she can activate. Granted, we're going first in this situation, so she's not able to do that. And then yeah, we can now use Magnolia's skill to have these 2 attack from the back row. It's free thanks to the Weasel. And then this has +5. This will not get +5. This has +10, so you can just go ahead and swing whatever pattern seems optimal for whatever you're fighting against. Check crit, check that, check this, retire that, draw, swing in your boosted, swing, maybe use Gnosla's skill if it warrants it, right? And then we have a pretty okay hand going into next turn here, but we can go ahead and like intercept with this, so now it's in the drop. We can go ahead and take some damage. Double order is kind of funny. And then we can go ahead and kind of use most of our hand here to guard, right, if we really need to, depending on what our opponent is playing. Then we go ahead and stand and draw and try to go for game here as we Persona Ride. Draw. Kind of do the exact same thing to an extent. So now we can put this into Soul. We can put this into Soul. We can once again call this, right? So we can put this into Soul, give the Vanguard 5k. We can put this to Soul, reduce the counterblast by 1. We can call this, counterblast 1, Soul Blast out 1, call this. Persona Ride is now active for the back row as well, thanks to Cyril. We can go ahead and overcall this with this, because they have the same power value, except this one lets us draw a card. This now has +10 from its own effect, which is really nice. And we can also use Magnolia's skill to make all these 3 attack from the back row. And we can hit some pretty good numbers here. So check, hit a heal, power here, put this into drop. Second apple, third this. Swing, we can counterblast, pass the power round, swing here, draw 1, swing here, put this to Soul, draw 1, and then swing here or poke with this, however makes most sense, right? And that's sort of the general flow that you want to get with the deck, which is not anything unfamiliar to most Magnolia players. It's just that the specifics of the list is what tries to make it happen more often, right? So that's what I tried to mention at the start, is that all the deck thing that I'm trying to do is to try and get Cyril to proc more easily, to get Magnolia to be more present, to then get you to also have these key cards in drop, so you can activate their effects wherever the Weasel is, to then also allow you to be able to do what you need to do, right? So this is just essentially trying to get Magnolia to do its Magnolia thing as best as it can. Keep it in hand that, keep it in mind, I should say, that you still have some issues. You can lose certain matchups just because of the way the deck is structured, but, had some pretty good amount of triggers left here, and I didn't even use this girl, right? I could use that to power up Gnosis and stuff like that, right? But that's that. I just wanted to go over the list really quickly. I've been really proud of this list since working on it, and I'm glad that my fiance was able to take it to Philly and have a really positive record, right? She went 5-3, 2 of those being buff Sakuras that she beats, right? So it's not like she just fought random stuff all day long, right? Like that, right? She fought pretty good meta decks and did pretty well with it, right? But in any case, let me know if you have any questions about the build in comments down below. Till next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Play Vanguard and have yourselves a damn good one.